In an attempt to find the perfect sensor size, I've noticed so many YouTube camera channels either focus on full frame or micro four thirds, but I may have overlooked the perfect sensor, APS-C. One of the most exciting things I discovered about APS-C is that the sensor is similar to the Super 35 sensors found in cinema cameras. I was so excited to become a filmmaker when I bought my first Sony ZV-E10, but I did run into some issues. My footage did not look like a movie.
The thing that annoys me when these people suggest that Super 35 is perfect, look, the movies are doing it. Look at their rigs. Man, it ain't just, nobody's going around with the Sony a6700.
If you're like me and you're wondering exactly what APS-C stands for, it stands for Advanced Photo System Type C. The Advanced Photo System format was actually created in 1996 as an alternative to 35mm film. A smaller sensor could mean a smaller body, and it would be a little easier for amateurs. There's type H, C, and P, and the type C actually stands for classic with the 3:2 ratio that's similar to 35mm film. Usually APS-C has a 1.5 crop factor compared to full frame for Sony and Nikon, but for Canon they have a 1.6 crop factor. I've been trying several different sensor sizes over the past couple of years, and I found out that micro four thirds with its 2x crop factor generally offers the most compact lenses and bodies. But I have noticed with micro four thirds it does have its limitations, especially when shooting in low light. Sometimes I end up with a bit more noise than I'm comfortable with. And using full frame usually has the advantage of more dynamic range, and I do get cleaner images when it comes to low light. But a lot of times I don't want to carry around those larger lenses and bodies, and a lot of times I leave my camera at home. In doing my research, I'm starting to wonder if maybe APS-C isn't the perfect compromise when it comes to image quality and portability. For photography, APS-C has definitely been the best of both worlds. It's more portable and fun to take around than full frame, and the image quality has been a little less noisy than micro four thirds, especially in low light, but I can't really say the same when it comes to video. One major problem is the IBIS in APS-C cameras isn't quite as good as that in micro four thirds or in full frame. I find with micro four thirds, the sensor being so small, it has room to move around and you get some of the most smooth footage ever. And with full frame, the weight of the body really does help to keep the footage stable. But I found with APS-C cameras being so light, especially with Sony, I was having so many jitters when it came to my footage. I'm not sure if this is just a Sony problem, but I have found out that some people using the Canon R7 were having shaky footage too. I know some models use really advanced electronic stabilization, so this really isn't too much of an issue, but for me, I found that micro four thirds is definitely the most stable footage I've ever been able to get. Even though I haven't been able to get the best handheld footage with an APS-C camera, I have found that on a tripod in a small home studio, they can't be beat. They don't take up much space, and they're decent in low light. And you can get a shallow depth of field, especially if you use a Sigma f1.4. That's what I use on my Sony ZV-E10 to film my videos. And if you're patient enough to balance a gimbal, which I am not, they definitely make great gimbal cameras because they are compact. Since they are relatively more affordable than full frame, you can also get multiple bodies. That's something Mark Bennett had suggested that I didn't really think of.
You find for my own personal work, I am taking APS-C cameras out probably 80% of the time. And sometimes that's because they are smaller and lighter cameras compared to my full frame cameras. Other times it's because they are less expensive because maybe I want to take several cameras for several angles. Easier to buy a bunch of APS-C cameras than a bunch of full frame cameras.
One advantage that APS-C has over full frame is that you can get a deeper depth of field at a lower aperture. This isn't something I thought about until Boo-Ray Perry brought it up.
Everyone always acts like the more shallow depth of field is always better in every situation. And it's not. It absolutely is not. Many times, shallow depth of field is your enemy. It is a problem for you. And I'll give you an example. When I was shooting a headshot, for example, big zoom lens shooting headshots, I would shoot typically at 4.0. Because if I went any more shallow than 4.0, if I went under 4.0, I would be in danger. If the subject turned their head, then this eye might be in focus and this eye might not be in focus. Because if you went to, say, 2.8 with a full frame and you're zoomed in with a big lens, that was going to be a problem for you. Your depth of field was going to be tiny, right? So I never did. I always shot it just at 4.0. However, now that I have a crop sensor camera, 4.0, I can shoot at 2.8 now and get the same as 4.0. So whereas you can easily say you have to shoot at 2.8 to get the same depth of field that I get at 4.0, I can say you have to shoot at 4.0 to get the same depth of field that I get at 2.8. Because while you can get a more shallow depth of field than I can at 4.0, I can get twice as much light in the camera as you can for the same depth of field.
I always thought the more shallow depth of field, the better, but I found out the hard way that I was missing focus when I took out my full-frame camera for the first time, especially when I had multiple subjects that weren't all in the same plane. I thought that I could shoot with my aperture wide open all the time, but when I would try to film a family of ducks or try to get both of my cats in focus at the same time, I learned the hard way that sometimes you need to stop down. And of course, you can get an even deeper depth of field with micro four thirds, but I do find that APS-C works a little bit better in low light. Although the cheaper price of APS-C has generally been an advantage, I've noticed this is changing. Brian James at Micro Four Thirds Guy pointed this out, and I've noticed this to be true with Sony cameras. The Sony a6700, the APS-C camera, has been priced at around $14.99, but the Sony a7 IV, the full-frame camera, is running at $19.99 currently, so the prices are getting closer and closer.
Full-frame cameras are coming down in price. They're coming down in size, camera body-wise at least. So where the price advantage used to be on the APS-C cameras, it's becoming less and less obvious. The starting level of the Canon mirrorless cameras are considerably lower. And the other thing is as well, with mirrorless cameras, there are less moving parts. You don't have the mirror box and things in the way there. And you've got more choice of lenses because you're not having that mirror. The mirror was the limiting factor for putting an AFS lens on. Although it's where it actually hits the sensor, you can get to the point where it's too narrow, the output from the lens, to fill the whole sensor. So there are difficulties on that. But I'm presuming, and this is a presumption, this isn't fact, don't go out and quote me on it, it's not guaranteed on this, but I'm thinking that you will find less and less investment in APS-C and more investment in full frame. Now, there are differences on that because the Fuji, the XT sort of lens on the Fuji are very much on a crop sensor platform, and they are very, very successful. So you're not going to see the end of it. But the Micro Four Thirds for me fits, it's good. And for me, I wouldn't personally be looking at another APS-C type camera. If I was going back to the larger sensors, I would be going for another full frame again, if that were the case, with the limitations, because the APS-C is not giving me particularly any of the size advantages. It is giving us a price advantage, but it's not giving the size advantages for me.
Another consideration when it comes to investing in APS-C over full frame is something that Diana Gladney mentioned. A lot of camera companies focus more on their full frame lines than they do on APS-C, and you're going to see more innovation when it comes to full frame.
I would love to stay with APS-C, but I don't want to do this every so many years waiting and hoping and praying. And I feel like I kind of made the decision in the process of making this video, which is, even though the A6700, again, this is just for me, is probably going to hit my Bee's Knees Hall of Fame for APS-C and what it can do, and the FX30 as well, I wouldn't need to upgrade those cameras for a long time. But we're probably going to see other full frame cameras come out, like an A7 IV, and I don't know if we'll ever see an A7 that has new camera. Like, that was a long time to upgrade too. But it's like we see faster updates, upgrades, and new features along the full frame lineup than we do the APS-C lineup. And while I think that will probably forever be a good lineup for content creating entrepreneurs, I'll probably always have a camera or cover the cameras at least. I think for me personally, moving forward, even though that freaking A6700 is going to come out in a couple months, and I'm going to probably want to and probably even lean on it when I'm in the office, I just think it makes sense at this point to go ahead and still move to full frame, because I just don't see them updating this lineup like that. Other ZV cameras may come out, but I just don't think it's going to do all of what full frame in the future can do.
While it's true that every sensor size definitely has its advantages and disadvantages, APS-C just might hit the sweet spot, especially for those of us who are just starting out on our photography and videography journeys. Although I haven't had the best of luck with handheld footage using an APS-C camera, it does make an awesome tripod camera for a home studio. If you like this video, give it a like, consider subscribing for more camera-related content from a newbie like me. God bless.